We're pleased that you're here this morning. We're going to have a discussion about Capital Township. And joining us are the chairman of the Sangamon County Board, Andy Van Meter, and the mayor of the city of Springfield, Jim Langfelder. Just a few brief remarks before we begin with the chairman here talking about the issue is Capital Township is not unique in being a essentially coterminous township where the boundaries of the city and the township basically overlap. There are a number of these, probably less than 10 now in the state. It is a unique configuration because of the fact that some of the services that are provided by Capital Township are provided through two of the county elected officials. The county clerk and the county treasurer perform some of those functions. As a township, townships can have a very wide range of activities and elected officials. In Capital Township, we're talking about three essential activities that take place: the assessment of property, the collection of property taxes, and the administration of the general assistance program. And so this is a discussion that was initiated from the county board about whether or not there would be a simpler, more transparent, and way of delivering services, and also a way of eliminating what appears to be an overlapping, duplicating level of government. And so the county board has made some suggestions about how this might be approached. Mayor Langfelder has made some suggestions about how this might be approached, and so what we're here today is to have a conversation about why this might be a good idea and what specifically it might look like. And with that, I'll turn things over to Andy.
Okay. We printed up a handout, which I hope most of you have, because there are a lot of numbers. So I thought it'd be easier to kind of follow with if we handed you some numbers. As Professor Redfield indicated, can you hear? Yeah, that's always my problem. Sorry. I think that the genesis of the concept of really completing the merger of Capital Township and the county really developed from Tom Cavanaugh's checklist. If any of you know Tom Cavanaugh, he's tight as a tick, and if you go to lunch with him, don't expect him to pick up the check. His
especially now.
This was as he was sort of leaving office, this is one of the things that had been on his to-do list to complete the merger of Capital Township and Sangamon County. The Capital Township put the question to the residents of Capital Township. It carried 3-1, and that kind of is in continuance of a long pattern of when we ask the voters about consolidating government, they get it, even if the politicians are slow to get it. In 1996, we merged the election office, the city election office, with the county election office. That carried 55 to 45. You can see the other mergers here. Parks and Recreation carried 68 to 32. Public Health carried 53 to 47. Township collectors, that affected all of the townships, carried by 3-1, and so did merging Capital Township into Sangamon County, carried 3-1. Along the way, we've been able to save the city $500,000 a year with consolidating the elections. You can see what that's totaled over the period of time, over the past 30 years. Animal control, about $912,000 over the past 18 years. And the public health mergers saved about $1.3 million a year, $18 million over the 13 years. And interestingly, the now combined county health department is operating at more than $1 million less than the two entities were operating at 13 years ago. Professor Redfield, so we have a history of these consolidations, successful consolidations, saving money for the taxpayers, saving money for the city of Springfield in most of those instances. Professor Redfield did a great job kind of covering the primary functions of Capital Township today. Primarily, its focus is general assistance, property assessment, which is critical because it represents a large part of the tax base of our community, and then tax collection. The general assistance program that Capital Township administers, the services are very similar to the services that the county offers on a county-wide basis. You can see here the list. If I were to characterize the difference between the two services, in general, the township services are more immediate and short-term. The county services are intended to be longer term. So there's a nice synergy, and if we're able to combine the two offices, combine them at the public health building where we currently offer all of the county services, it will be one-stop shopping for the residents of the community that seek those services. The county assists around 10,000 individuals in a year's time. So the constituent benefits, we have the experience in delivering these services. We have a trained team that is delivering these services already, and as I said, one-stop shopping. For the taxpayers' benefits, we see savings in operations that will allow for a 26% reduction in the tax rate. That amounts to about $12.50 on the average tax bill. And significantly, if the township is merged with the county, tax caps will remain in place. The city is the one major government entity in the community that is not tax capped. So if the township is to merge with the city, township taxes will not be under tax caps. If it merges with the county, the tax rate will be capped as the county's rate is capped. And as one of the effects of tax caps, the county's tax rate is lower today than it was 30 years ago. The township's rate, because it's currently under tax caps, is lower than it was 17 years ago. How are we going to achieve the savings to pass on to the taxpayers? They're detailed here, largely in as a result of the attrited reduction in staff, and in discontinuing the use of the current township building and consolidating the services at the public health building, which was really our vision for the public health building when we built it, that it would be a one-stop shop for the constituents that use its services. So Capital Township was created by Sangamon County in 1878. The legislature partially merged Capital Township and Sangamon County in 1908. It's been partially merged for over a century, and it's a unique situation in the entire state. There is no other situation like this. We have a proven history of delivering savings to the taxpayer and improving the efficiency of the delivery of service to the constituency. And as Tom said, after a century, it's time to get the job done and finish the merger. That's our proposal.
Great. Well, thank you, Chairman Van Meter, Professor Redfield, and Citizens Club for putting this on, and thank you for getting up early in the morning and coming here. So we really appreciate your interest. And this is evidently everybody's favorite township, Capital Township. It's gained in popularity recently. But what I'd like to do is start off with a survey, a show of hands. How many of you actually live in Capital Township? Very good. A little over half. And then recently, City of Springfield annexed properties around Springfield. How many of you were impacted by that? Anybody? Oh, they didn't care to come. Well, that's all right. Well, really what we're talking about is there's no doubt that Capital Township serves a great need. And Chairman Van Meter, pointed out how entities, government entities, can work together to get things done. That's what it's all about. But with regards to what we're talking about, it's really for the taxpayer. So that's the bottom line. What's in the best interest of the property taxpayers? And so that's what is important, as the chairman pointed out, is property tax caps. I was on the county board, actually came in right after that, or right around that. I served on the county board for a 4-year period of time. So I have that unique experience, and then, which was a great experience. It really shows you how Democrats and Republicans work together. And so the other side of it is with property taxes, really what's important for Springfield, the city of Springfield has a self-imposed property tax. We haven't raised property taxes since the 1980s. And that's really due to the residents. You'll get the backlash of individual residents. We have the best form of government with regards to the aldermanic form because they're the heartbeat of our community. And they will hear it anytime there's any, tax increase or branch pickup or what have you. But when someone's looking to move, one of the taxes they look at mainly is property taxes. And so that's one of the reasons the city of Springfield has not raised it, because you should go to the city's website, springfield.il.us. For our budget, we have a pie graph, and it shows all the taxing bodies that charge property taxes. So it's the city of Springfield, it's the school district, Lincoln Land Community College, the county, of course, Capital Township, SMEA, the list goes on and on. And 2 things I'll point out. One is, since we haven't raised those taxes, we are really at the bottom of our peer cities with regards to Bloomington, Champaign, Peoria. We do not want to be above them. We want to be competitive. And that's why we've held ours, that be in that competitive realm, so we don't overextend ourselves and people, it really disenfranchises people to moving here. And you can look at all the reports, Springfield's a great place to live for affordability. So really the whole impetus with Capital Township or township consolidation is one, Illinois has a multiple, they're one of the largest states with taxing bodies. And the core of it is to drive economic development through tax relief for the taxpayers. That's the essential part of it. And how can we eliminate those taxing bodies that make sense to move in that direction? So, for myself, Capital Township, how I came into knowing that it's within the city of Springfield, I used to play softball. As with the Springfield Recreation Department, you had to go in there, fill out your form, and you had to put what township you live in. I go, wow, that's strange. I'm just a kid of 18 years old, and you fill it out. Well, lo and behold, it was coterminous with the city of Springfield. And but as the city has grown, there is, with regards to the whole process, I'll dive into that in a little bit, but it's no longer coterminous. There's over a dozen coterminous townships with cities. And the legislature, how they typically have that process is, if you're coterminous, you can eliminate the township, a city can, by having a referendum, and then you get the authority of the township that you're impacting, and they would vote for that consolidation. And that's how it's done, and that happens. So if the city would have done the referendum and the township would have signed on, it would have been over with. Because everybody, how many of you are for tax relief? Right? How many? That's all? Holy cow. I guess I'm going to win this election. So really, seriously, most people are for tax relief for the right purposes. And so with that in mind, with the county, the issue is they'll have to take another step of legislation, special legislation to get it done. But with regards to Capital Township, that's the impetus, that's what has to transpire. So I'm going to give you a little history. They've already touched on a lot of it. But really, 2010 was the next mode where I came into the impact of Capital Township. I had a friend, when I became treasurer in 2010, sent me an email, actually, and said, hey, I'm in Gardner Township. I have to pay them taxes. I'm in the city of Springfield. What's up with that? Well, they had to, there's a kind of a loop in the state legislature where a township, if a city like Springfield annexes the properties, that's why I asked about lake properties, we just annexed those in, a township can put out a referendum, not just to the impacted property owners, but to the whole township, and take a vote if those property taxpayers should stay in that township instead of coming into Capital Township. And what's happened in that case, in Gardner Township, which is, it's Salem Estates West. And so they voted to retain them. And so now they have to pay a road tax to Gardner Township, while we, the city of Springfield, takes care of the roads. So that's, it's just, that's one of those loops that is frustrating, that should be closed, and we're going to take a look at moving some legislation to get that done. And the other ones that are impacted right now are the ones around the lake. So that was interesting. In 2011, I received an invitation by the Efficiency Commission. And so as an elected official, you're obligated. When the Efficiency Commission asks you to come and speak to them, I can't ignore it. So I go and I talk about, one of the issues was Capital Township. The other one I'll just throw out there real quick was having standardized building permit process throughout the county. And the reason for that, if you build in Rochester, Chatham, Springfield, or Sherman, you should follow the same building code and make life easier. And I'm not saying you bring it up to the standards of Springfield, but you should have the standard where a contractor doesn't have to worry about it. And then they can't say, well, it's easier building Chatham than it is in Springfield, because we're all following the same guidelines. And so that's the one that didn't get any traction at all. But this one came 8 years later, or 7 years later, which is good. But the Efficiency Commission, through that whole discussion, and Tom Cavanaugh has been a great steward with regards to public officials. We appreciate your service. And I said he can't afford to take us out because he's retired now. So thank you really very much for your service. We appreciate it.
Yes.
But with regards to that, the Efficiency Commission, they said no, it shouldn't be consolidated, and that was that. So fast forward to 2018. And I should give a shout out because it's all about transparency. That's the big buzzword, and it's thrown around loosely, but really what transparency for me is, how do you promote the government that you're representing? And it's all about, we're the land of Lincoln. Everybody agrees we're the government of the people, by the people, for the people. We're the model, whether in the county or the city, because Lincoln was here. That's the one we live up to. And so with regards to that, I'm going to give a shout out to Lakeisha Purchase. When she became trustee, she knew that the township, a lot of people didn't realize what the township government does. They still don't. When I went door to door asking for signatures, they didn't really understand township government. But she's raised the level of awareness with regards to what they do. And it's really, as was pointed out, helping those most in need. Providing LIHEAP, which is the low-income housing, energy assistance. We'd like to now, with this partnership, hopefully that we're going to end up with, work more towards the homeless, have really a connectivity with regards to all the resources we have possible, working towards those initiatives to make for a better tomorrow. So with regards to, kudos to the SJR, they have a lot of influence on our city council, because I thought, after the referendum went through, and even before then, they said, well, you shouldn't duplicate that effort. And so the council listened to them and went that direction. And then so what we would have to do, if we don't take it for a referendum, we'd have to give, I think, 3,000 signatures. So this is right after the state election. I'm not, we're trying to get signatures. We probably could have. But I said, well, we should just take it back before the city council. So we tried, and they said, no, we don't want to. But the reason you want to take it to the city council, why it's important, is what I pointed out before. The aldermanic form of government came from a voting rights lawsuit, and it is really representation of the Springfield residents. And that's what we're talking about here. These are tax dollars that impact Springfield residents. And the best individuals to represent them are the aldermen and women that serve the city of Springfield. Because people aren't afraid to pick up the phone and talk to the alderman. They might not always want to talk to me or the treasurer or the clerk, but the alderman, they like to talk to them. And so that's why they're at the heartbeat. I served on the county board in the 90s. Half of my district was in the city, half was in the county. I never received one phone call from a city resident because they called their alderman. That's how it is. They didn't think of calling their county board member. They want to call their alderman, and that's who should be representative of this. So with regards to that, when the thing came out, I think Director McCarty's passing out, or he has a comparison with different townships. I asked him to do that because when the referendum question was coming up, we wanted to see the comparison, and we identified at least $500,000 conservatively. And this is similar to what Evanston did. Evanston did a coterminous, they're coterminous, they consolidated, and actually the BGA, Better Government Association, identified Evanston as the model to follow. And they have a population of 75,000 people, and they expected $500,000 in savings. Lo and behold, it's more like $750,000 in savings. But we've identified conservatively $500,000, and that really, the competing forces with the county and the city will help the taxpayers win in this whole process, because that's what it's all about. How do we give property tax relief, put more money in individuals' pockets so they benefit, and in turn, you know, it helps spur our economy. And so that's the competing forces kind of drove that, because after we got that message out there, then the county came back with the advertisement right before the referendum that said, well, we can save $600,000. So who knows what the savings will be once this is all done. But I think everybody's in agreement of two things. One, it's time to have the consolidation. The second thing is, how do we maintain that level of service for those in need? Those are the two factors. And that's what we're trying to grapple with here. So with that, you know, we did have a conversation, and that's what we're hoping to do, or I'm hoping to do, is because I did go to the legislators, and I said, well, the county's trying to do this. It's never been done before. It's really allowed through state legislature that you consolidate to the city. And I said, but if they come with an initiative, I want you to be aware of it. We're not in favor of it. And they said, well, we'd rather have you work it out on the local level. So the chairman and I sat down and talked about some of the items that I had referenced, and you know, some well, maybe one you like, maybe not, I'm not sure, but that's something that hopefully we come to an amicable solution. Because what I think everybody wants in the room is, how do we provide that property tax relief, provide the services that we need to, and then you know, move for a better tomorrow for all of us. That's what it's all about.
And just, I've got maybe a couple of questions and maybe a point of clarification, but are there anything that you'd like to pick up before we move
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
I
want to make sure that everybody has had a chance to discuss, you know. Just a point of clarification, state law currently provides for if a joint action of the city and the township to put a binding referendum on the ballot in order to move to essentially, we've been talking merger and consolidation. State law is, we abolish the township. It no longer exists. We no longer elect trustees. All of the assets, all of the obligations, everything goes to whatever body the binding referendum moves the taxing authority and the functions to. So, and I assume if we go to special legislation to make this a shift of the functions to the county, it would be essentially the same thing, that we would be, you know, so it really is abolishing the capital township and moving those functions. One thing, when we, you know, I guess my question from the city side is, when you, if you take over the functions of capital township through the process that exists in the state law, then it's not just general services. There's still general assistance. There's still the question of who's doing the assessing, right. And then, although tax collecting is kind of moved away towards the treasurer, but essentially, what happens to the assessment function, which is now being done by the county clerk's office?
Right, that would have to remain similar, because they assess all the properties in the city of Springfield. So I think that's part of your savings, is through the administration aspect of it. With regards to the other services, you know, our Office of Economic Development, we do community development block grant funds. We've been, you know, we do millions of dollars of administration with, you know, lead-based abatement, also emergency repairs, things of that nature. So that's a function that we could take on. But going back to my letter that I sent to the Efficiency Commission, that's what I pointed out, is, you know, you'd have to really assess, does it make sense to I like consolidate, it's a softer word instead of abolish, because the reason being is you're continuing the services. And so 2 points. One is, what's the right way to do it? And I even said back then, it really should be, you have to determine what the county initiatives would be taking over as well as the city. And so that's, as the chairman pointed out, we have done that successfully through public health and other initiatives of consolidation. So that's the aspect that you would really have to analyze. And, for us, if the city would take it over, we'd just follow the model of Evanston. That was a proven model. They said it was transparent with regards to that, and really the aldermen became the trustees. Regardless of what happens, what you have to have is a separate fund set up so you track those dollars, because you don't want to lose that accountability. And that's one of the, in the agreement, that's one thing I said, we should have like an oversight group, representative of aldermen, a couple of county board members, or however that mix would be, maybe some people from the general public, not being more bureaucratic, but being more open and accountable to the public, to making sure that we are providing the assistance we need to those that need it.
Okay, and that's primarily in terms of the oversight of the general assistance function.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the assessing function, mm-hmm. then that would either require developing a competency within a city department or some type of intergovernmental agreement to continue the services being provided by the county clerk's office.
Yeah, it'd be continued in the same manner as it does, similar to what it is now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Mike, something just in terms of lack of knowledge, but I guess the best way to ask this is, in terms of the general assistance program as it's currently being administered, and we have 2 county board elected county officials who are on ex officios of the township board, how would life be different for the people that are currently administering general assistance for Capital Township if it suddenly, if then the legal oversight shifted to, I assume, the county board? What difference does that make in terms of the day-to-day activities of and the ability to deliver services?
For the staff,
yeah.
Or for the constituencies using the service?
Well, actually both.
Okay, well, for the staffs will be merged. So we'll have additional people to serve the 10,000 people that we are currently serving. For the constituents, these 10,000 people currently know if they need assistance, they know where they go. They go to the public health building. And now they don't have to go 2 places. Now, at the moment, they have to go 2 places. If they need short-term assistance, they go to the township. If they need longer-term assistance, they go to the public health building. We consolidate the 2. You go 1 place. And if by the way you need some public health assistance, and we operate now a clinic at the same location, that's right there for them too. So their services are going to be much more efficiently delivered to them if we're combined. I want to draw this point clearly, that we provide all these services right now. There are 2 things the township does: the assessment and delivery of these services to those people in our community most in need. We do all of this right now. The community that needs these services knows that. They know where to go, and we're only going to make it easier for them. We do all of the assessment work right now. We've been doing that since the foundation of the county.
Well, actually, if I could piggyback, they're going to 3 places because they come to economic development, or they go to community relations, where Juan Huerta is, right down the street from the public health facility. So the centralization of those services. And, but really, what we don't want to lose sight of, because they're, 2 things for Springfield. 1, we need to bring people together as much as possible. I mean, we're dealing with the continuum of care. We have so many social service agencies for housing, for homeless. We need to maximize our resources. That's what has to happen. How do we maximize our resources to provide those in need? And that's what we need to determine. But what can't be lost in this translation is the property tax relief, because that's what the consolidation is all about. That's why the legislature put it in place for cities, because they want to provide property tax relief for the citizens that have coterminous, where the city delivers the roads. You don't have the Gardner situation happening, or what's happening out the lake. You have, where they're not getting taxed for services that the city's already providing, and that's an extra tax. So Capital Township, or the consolidation, first and foremost, if you're not providing property tax relief on an ongoing basis, just not a one-year blip, but on an ongoing basis, then, you know, we're missing the boat. That's the whole impetus of the consolidation. But, you know, also, how do we work towards those consolidated resources, and how do we best serve the public as best as possible, working together to get that done?
There was a number that you just mentioned that I'm interested in. You referenced 10,000 people, which I assume is kind of the number of people you're in contact in terms of social services with
Yes.
the county as a whole. And if we're looking at the intake for and services for Capital Township, how many people are involved with that?
We don't have as good, the statistics that we have with reference to exclusively to Capital Township are not as good as the statistics we have for the county-wide delivered services. But best estimate, it's 90% overlap, probably more than that, probably 95% overlap.
Okay, so it's not, there aren't, in that case, there are 1,000 people that are getting services from Capital Township that are not also engaged with any kind of services from the county?
The other way around.
Okay.
There may be 1,000 people who are getting services from the county that are not also getting services from Capital Township. That's a more difficult question to know if it's the exact same people. I'm just talking, we can say with more certainty in terms of raw numbers that the township is probably serving 10% fewer than we are now, something like that.
I mean, I assume if this gets to a binding referendum, then one of the questions is going to be, just looking at numbers Bob Gray put together, if we're talking about $1.5 million in terms of the cost of general assistance in terms of Capital Township, and I realize accounting can be accounting, I mean, in terms of how you count numbers, but you know, there's going to be a question about kind of, you know, how many people are we serving and what its costs, what's the cost? Where are you getting, you know, $600,000 out of a budget of, you know, $1.5 million, or if you add, you know, I mean,
where are we getting it? We're getting it primarily from a reduction of staff at the township.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 469,000 of it's coming from staff reduction, and actually almost 600,000 of it comes from staffing reduction, including benefits. Then the balance, the remaining $50,000 is coming from elimination of the use of the building, which creates another synergy and possibility that building is available for some other community purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, with regards to I think the handout hopefully was turned out, but we had Capital Township in comparison to Peoria and Champaign and those townships, and it will show you the numbers to what they use compared to like Peoria. They provide similar amounts of assistance, but I think they have like 4 fewer employees. But I think that's what you'll see is through the administration aspect, it's just like anything you bring together, you're going to have similar duties. But what we're not talking about is eliminating someone's job. You do it through attrition, or, you know, because Capital Township employees right now know how to deliver the services, so you don't want an interruption of those services. But one thing, I see Doug Brown here from CWLP. That reminds me that we do provide assistance through CWLP as well, so we've run the gamut on that. And so, you know, they talk about 10,000, and I'd probably have to defer to Val. Our, you know, low-income population is a lot larger in the city, or, you know, it's maybe not, I'm not sure what that number is, low, moderate income people, you know, or who can take advantage of those, but who takes advantage of economic development initiatives through housing, things of that nature, is quite, you know, it's a large population that, you know, we try to serve as much as possible.
Jim, I really don't agree with the characterization that the services the city provides to this population are similar to the services that the county and the township are providing. The city provides very important services to these county, to this population, but it's a higher level of service. it's, as you said, it's economic development, it's construction loans, it's a higher level of service. The service that the county and the township provide are sort of immediate, day-to-day, I need this, or I'm going to be homeless service. And the city water, light, and power example is I would say, the one one exception to that. But the bulk of the city services are of a higher level than the kind of immediate need services that the county is accustomed to providing these people, and they're accustomed to receiving from the county and the township.
And that's why, you know, that's what's good to have these competing forces, because, you know, the SJR, they put out that editorial, and, you know, and I went to legislature, though, you know, I listen. You know, that's why we should come to a mutual agreement to how do we best move in the direction to make it efficient. So if it's with the county, you know, I'm all for it. You know, people didn't think I'd come up with the Everclear agreement, you know, the competing utility, possible utility, and we did because it made sense as we have it structured within the agreement. And this is the same way. You know, we're not saying no, but we're going to say, well, let's work on it, because just doing it's not the right answer.
Well, as we've discussed, I'm very willing to work on projects, very willing to work on projects, and you have identified the homeless project as something that you would like assistance on, and the county is very willing to do that. I think we've demonstrated with the 10th Street project, if this community comes together,
right,
we can move a railroad. So I'm very willing to come together on projects. What I think we should be less interested in, and I think the people have sent us, not only in this last referendum, but in referendum after referendum after referendum, is they're not interested in discarding one level of government that's currently elected by the people by another level of government. We need to drive down our costs and improve our efficient delivery of services. The forces that tolerated inefficiency in government are just not going to let us get by with that any longer.
Oh, I agree, and that's why you need representative oversight, and that's, you know, like I said, it's not another level of bureaucracy. It might be another committee within, you know, with the alderman. It's just like our Economic Development Commission that I've started, because alderman questioned, what about the TIF projects? There's no, you know, how do we know they're vetted? This is be similar. I mean, it'd be a mutually a group that would oversee the funds, making sure they're distributed appropriately. You know, it's not another level of bureaucracy. You still have the day-to-day activities being carried out, but you have that transparency and accountability through a group, you know, just like your county board committees. I mean, you have, I don't know how many you have, but quite a few. I've served on, I think, 2 or 3. But this would just be another form of that, and making sure there's accountability and reportability back to the public in general, and then also with regards to the people that we serve.
Well, I don't understand this accountability argument. What is the county board? Are we chopped liver? We're elected by the people. There are 29 members of the county board. 17 of them have a majority of their district in Capital Township. We represent the people. We're accountable to the people. We have to answer to FOIA laws. We're subject to the media scrutiny. We are perfectly capable of being accountable to the people without the city's instruction on how to do it. And we're also perfectly capable of executing a merger. And we've proven we can do it over and over and over again, saving the city $30 million over the course of all of these mergers. Here's a question of accountability. What has the city done with the money?
With what money?
The $30 million.
Well, I'd have to take a look at the chart that you're referring to. I know one thing we didn't do is raise property taxes. I mean, that's since the 1980s. And if we would have done that like Champaign or Bloomington, we'd have abundance of funds, but we didn't. So other taxing bodies would, you know, we'd be competitive, and they would be able to address their needs. But it's about working together. You know, the airport authority, we both have appointments on that airport authority. And the reason for that is you have a board that's looking at that interest, but that's a board. You know, we have committees. We have the 911 committee we both serve on. We have a member from the general public serve on that. And the reason for that is just to go over the budget each year, making sure the funds, you know, do we need to change it in any way? Does the city need to put more in? And so that's all we're talking about. It's not another level of bureaucracy. It's how do we work together, especially when you're serving city residents. I mean, we have a great interest. The aldermen have a great interest in city residents. One thing we don't want to do is get a call up and they say, hey, alderman, you know, I have an issue with this, and we don't know anything about it. We're going through that with public health right now. We've been approached by the restaurants of being charged way too many fees with regards to inspections. They've skyrocketed with regards to the amounts. Public health with you know, animal control, things of that nature. And so we have to kick it back to another entity, and we represent the people that are calling us. So with regards, I go back to my county board days. I served on the county board. They don't call their county board member. They call their alderman. So we have boards that we have aldermen serve on, public health and other ones. And that's all we're saying is we can have another committee. It's not a big deal. It's already being done effectively, and this is one way to do it. So it's just raising the level of awareness with regards to that, and it really creates that transparency between the city and the county. I mean, that's what it's all about. How do we, you know, make that happen so we can make sure we move together in an amicable manner?
We work together very well, and I'm perfectly willing to work together on any project, but I'm really dedicated to reducing the cost and improving the efficiency of how we deliver services in this community. We have scarce resources, and we have to spend them more wisely.
And I agree, and give tax rebate back to the property taxpayers, because that's what it's all about. Let's not lose sight of that. That's what the legislation was written for, to provide property tax relief, not just one blip, but going on in perpetuity.
I completely agree, and we have a history of having done that, of merger after merger after merger, with most of the benefit accruing to the city of Springfield. Yeah.
But not with regard, you know, I use public health real quick. I mean, I just met with the restaurants, and they're saying, we're getting dinged. I mean, go talk to them. I mean, with the inspections, I mean, the costs are skyrocketing. We don't have control. But all I'm saying is we need to work together to identify it, because right now there's no legislation available to go this route. There's no legislation. The route it has to go, if you want to go that route, is through the city. But what I'm saying is, you know, I'm okay having it to go to the county. All I'm saying, we should work out an amicable solution to make sure our citizens, the city of Springfield citizens, have fair representation through this whole process, and how we, you know, provide assistance to those in need.
We're not Soviet Russia. The citizens of Springfield are citizens of Sangamon County and the state of Illinois and the United States of America.
Yeah, and God bless America too. That's good.
And at that point of agreement,
I think what, real quick, Chairman's passionate. I'm not. County government, they've done an effective job. City government, we've done an effective job. I know, you know, we're in that realm of the time of year, but really what it's all about is serving the public. That's what, you know, it goes back to my original saying, government of the people, by the people, for the people. And what you see here is a lot of passion, and we'll come to an agreement, hopefully, and move in that direction to best serve you.
And with that, we have time for questions. As Bob said, there is no mic, so you're going to have to speak loudly, and I will repeat the questions. And so at this point, who wants to be first?
This might be a very elementary question. So I pay my taxes, and some of my taxes go to Capital Township, right?
Correct.
So that money, are you saying then that if this consolidation happens, I don't pay that money anymore? Or that money still gets paid, it just is going somewhere else? I don't understand it at a very basic level of follow the money, and then where does the money go, and who decides who gets to get that money? That's what I don't get, depending on whether we go the county way or the city way. In the end, am I still paying somebody money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The law provides that the taxing authority would go to whatever governmental entity takes over the functions if the township is abolished. And if you were writing a law specifically for Sangamon County to deal with their circumstances, you would have to essentially, if you were duplicating current state law about abolishing a township and the functions going to municipality, you know, the taxing authority follows that. We assume, you know, you're going to decide this if you're, ultimately, if you're a resident of the city of Springfield, you'll be faced with a binding referendum and a series of statements and promises from the people pushing the referendum about what's going to happen to your taxing authority and whether you're going to get a rebate. And so ultimately the citizens are going to decide this if it gets to the point of doing moving the functions to either the city or the county.
May I? Oh,
Yep.
Because I have a Part B elementary question, I think, but go ahead and.
Well, go ahead.
Well, then, okay, so I'm paying somebody the same amount of money. So what then I don't understand
No,
is,
not the same amount of money. If you merge with the county, you'll pay less.
I'll pay less. So
Yeah.
that's where my taxes go down. But how does that affect my property tax reduction?
Your
Property tax is based on that's the amount I'm paying?
If you own the average piece of property in Capital Township, your property tax bill, the line that says Capital Township, will go down by $12.50, by 26%. Your line will go down by 26%. But this is another critical point about the effect of you as the taxpayer, that I would try to explain the effect of tax caps. Let us say, just for the purpose of this explanation, that you people do not live under tax caps, and you people all live under tax caps. You people have property that's worth $100 million. You people have property that's worth $100 million. Somebody in the group's going to have to do some quick math, okay? Now, we set your tax rate at 10%. So how much do all of you have to get together and pay in taxes? Your property's worth $100 million. How much do you have to pay us in taxes? $10 million. All right, your property rate, your tax rate is set at 10%. You have $100 million property. How much do you have to pay us? $10 million. Good. All right, now I've got good news for both sides. You're not under tax caps, right? So your property's gone up in value by $200 million. I'm going to keep your tax rate the same. How much do you have to pay in taxes? No, I'm sorry, you doubled. Your value of your property doubled from $100 million to $200 million. You still I'm going to keep your tax rate the same. How much do you have to pay me in taxes? $20 million. Now you people are under tax caps. That means that we collected $10 million from you, that what we can collect from you is capped. The next year, the maximum we can collect is $11 million. But I got good news for you. Your property's doubled in value. What are we going to collect from you in taxes? $11 million. Now, anybody who's on this side of the room that wants to change to that side of the room, you're welcome to do it. That's the effect of tax caps. And if Capital Township merges with Sangamon County, your taxes will be capped. If you merge with the city, you're on that side of the room.
Which is all perspective. You know, if one of the options that the non-tax cap county or city has, if the property doubles, so you're going to get more revenue, is to lower the rates. And the option among the citizens is if your public officials don't lower the rates and take the windfall from the growth, you vote them out of office the next time around. Right. You're still in control, but short-term tax caps put limits on what the elected officials can do.
But I want to emphasize this point again. When the politician tells you, I kept your tax rate the same, they're collecting more revenue nonetheless.
Yeah, and hopefully that's through growth and economic development. The other side of it is the oversight, the awareness. That's why I go back to Lakeisha Purchase. She really raised the level of awareness on Capital Township, and it's still not where it needs to be. There needs to be greater awareness, and that's why I think that oversight committee is the one that you really have to have in place. It's no different than the jail committee. They oversee the jail with regards to the county operations. No difference than community community relations or not? No, that's my guy. The community resources. I think I served on that one, but there's tons of committees what you need to have is a committee. If this happens, there has to be oversight with regards to the funds, so there's that accountability. And that's what I'm talking about, is the accountability of the funds. And that way they can report back. And hopefully there should be an alderman on there that can say, hey, here's what we've done. And, you know, let's work together and serve the people of the city of Springfield as best as possible. And that's, you know, so I think everybody's in agreement. The goal that Jill had pointed out, force that tax number to be reduced. And by the way, that number didn't come out until we pushed the initiative. That's why I say when there's competing forces questioning the taxpayer benefits. And that's what we've shown, is we've said we can identify at least $500,000 in savings. Now it's, you know, at least there's an identified number now, $12 it sounds like. So really that's what we're trying to get to, is what's the best way to move forward together.
Yes.
Yeah, how does the merging the township with the county, how does that comport with the principles of democracy and no taxation without representation, when you have the people making decisions about where the money paid by Capital Township residents or City of Springfield residents, the money that they pay will be decided by the county board, which has at least, you said there were 17 districts that had a majority in the city, so that must mean there's at least, I think, 12 that don't have a majority, and others that also have, you know, parts that are not in the city. So it seems like you're having people, basically taxation without representation, if there was a merger with the county.
Well, Sam, I'm not surprised you asked that question because of your legal background, but this is a this is a legal knot that's hard to untie. How do we answer that when we already have 2 officials governing Capital Township that are elected county-wide? As you pointed out in your numbers, a majority of the county board will have a majority of their district in Capital Township. So they will have adequate representation. And once again, what is the county? King George? I mean, no taxation without representation. We are accountable to the community, just as the city council is. We have to abide by all the same rules and regulations.
Other questions, concerns? Yes, sure. Go ahead, sir.
I'm just a citizen, but it seems like you guys agree that the merger should be made. What from a citizen standpoint, I don't know the pros and cons. You guys know what you're fighting, what the influx of confusion is. I don't. I'm like, what I hear is people that agree that it'd be a positive situation for the people if you come together. But what I'm not hearing is what the differences are. And we got a lot of paper here, but we don't have anything. This is what your differences are. This is what your differences are. And then as a people, we can look at it on paper and say, well, we could work this out if we change this and we do that. I mean, that's pretty elementary to me, but without knowing what the real differences are, then you can't never agree because you don't know what's what.
And that's why I presented a couple points to the chairman. We talked about them, and you know, we're not near, you know, to agreement. But what it comes down to is the process. Right now, if the city of Springfield wanted to pursue it, here's the steps. We get a permission from the city council. They'd have to approve the referendum moving forward, and then that would pass overwhelmingly, as what was shown already by, you know, through the county's initiative. So that's going to pass at least as well. And then the other side of it is Capital Township trustees would have to give the authority to have the city take it over. So that would be it. That's end of story. What has to happen on the county side, we have to go to the state legislature. And that's where it gets really sticky. You have to go to the state legislature, have special legislation drafted that would allow the consolidation to happen through the county, because it's not in existence yet. And so that's the thing. So that's the question. I guess that's the leverage we have, you know, saying, okay, if you want to do it, we'll go over there with you, but here's what we want, you know, to move forward together. That's what we're talking about. How do we move forward together where we're comfortable as representative elected officials of the citizens of Springfield, that we have our faith and moving forward together. That's what it comes down to from our standpoint.
But that still could be made plain to what your concerns are. Could just be made plain to everybody, so it's nothing.
Well, and-
it's transparency is what's important, I guess.
You know, if, trying to be as neutral as possible, the disagreement is over who will have administrative control and the taxing authority for, and the resources for the general assistance program. And what are we going to do with the functions that are currently being provided by the county clerk and the county treasurer? You know, assessing, collection. So it's a question of who controls the taxing authority, who has administrative control over the services, and then a question of representation of you know, what is the best way, or you know, or is there an issue with whether or not citizens are being represented, whether or not it is you know, that we've got a sense of representation. The mechanical problems of either using existing state law or changing state law, you know, those are as big as or as small as your disagreement. You know, the legislative process takes months. Except when I worked for the General Assembly, we came in on a Saturday afternoon after the election and raised the salaries for legislators and constitutional officers in less than 4 hours. So if you have consensus, the legislature can move incredibly quickly. But you know, those are, you know, the difference. The city and the county have disagreements about those issues, about administration and control over resources.
I just want to address this question of we're going to be blocked at the state level. I'm surprised if that's the case when 3/4 of the population of the community has voted for this merger. But if that's the case, then what the county's going to do is what we do all the time, is we're going to look for other ways to implement the clear mandate of the voters, which is to reduce and eliminate the cost of delivering these services and improve the delivery of these services. So we're going to find other ways to effectuate the people's instructions.
And that's the one thing that we don't want happening, and this is the other side of it that I've heard is, you know, they put forward the referendum essentially to block the city's efforts, and that it's just a maneuver to not let the consolidation happen. So I'm all in favor of consolidation. I pointed it out in 2011. I have the letter to prove it. And so I presented to the Efficiency Commission. So 7 years later, they say, hey, that's a good idea, and the county wants to do it. So we're all in favor of it, but it has to be done right. What's in the best interest of the citizens of Springfield? That's all we're talking about. They pay the property taxes. We want to make sure that there's accountability with regards to that. What's that property tax relief, working together to identify the savings and making sure that it goes into perpetuity. But the other side of it is to provide the level of service that we're providing right now through Capital Township. Because you don't want to say, well, now we're only providing $300,000 of service or whatever it is. So that's working together. And as the chairman pointed out, we've done that on several initiatives, and we'll continue to do that on several initiatives. And this is just the next initiative that we'll do it together. I mean, that's all what it's all about. So really, if we have the sincere interest, like they said, I'm all in favor. Let's move it forward in the spring session. But I think, well, we had 2 other questions real quick.
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
All right, and so we really appreciate the county board chairman and the mayor for taking their time, and let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Excellent.